Hey, yo! Oh, it is time. With all the new commanders that have come into the game over the last couple of months, it is time to talk about the Ultimate March Guide, your Murderball Guide. No matter what you're running, we're going to go through it all. We're going to do it by troop type. We're going to do it by 5, 6, 7 marches, all the different variations. We're going to talk about who's fallen off. We're going to talk about who's entered the chat. So stick around while we go through the Ultimate March Guide for you right now.
Rallies lit up, marching right from the zone to the zone. I stay in control. Man of the people, all heart, no roll, no script, no throne, just rhythm and fire. Built for the push, never gonna tire. You feel that burn, and you already know we're locked in deep. This is Chatsky mode. This is Chatsky mode.
Hey everybody, I'm your boy War Daddy Chatsky. I do videos all the time, and these are the kind of guides that I absolutely love doing. Just absolutely love doing. And this is one of the things that is most sought after. Everybody wants to know, what are we running now? And so if you enjoyed this video, throw a like on here. If you have not subscribed, consider doing so. Hit that subscribe button and hit the bell for any alerts that you might want to get when I put out this kind of content. I've been asked now nonstop, with the addition of commanders in the game, like Gang Gang, and like Hector and Achilles and all these different commanders that we have, I have now put together the Ultimate March Guide. No matter what you're running, we've got to figure this thing out. We got to tell you what's best. I have run them all through the gauntlet. Okay, I've run Hector in the field. Of course, I've run Achilles. I've been doing that on my second account. I've got my main account who's in KVK. So we have done all the work, and now we're going to tell you exactly how this goes. So there's going to be timestamps in the bottom that's going to go through the infantry, going to go through the cavalry, then the archers. Then it's going to go through 5 marches, 6 marches, and 7 marches. And if you only run 3 or 4 marches, you can just reference the troop types that I'm doing, and then you can mix and match and put the marches together yourself. Also, if you have questions, throw them down in the comments. Go into my Discord. The Discord link is in the description, and we can help you out there when it comes to figuring out what to do for your marches. And so with that, we're going to get into infantry. But before we do, listen. For all these different categories, guys, I get it. There are multiple opinions out there. You can run them 100 different ways, okay? This is me personally, what I would like to do. I'm going to bring Hector into the mix, okay? But I'm also going to give you examples if you don't have Hector, because not everybody does. Hector's going to be more for garrison players, whether you're infantry or soon to be cav garrisons. That's when you're going to have Hector. But Hector's legit. I'm just telling you, I'll have a card at the top that goes through my Hector guide that I put together and put out over the weekend, and Hector works exceptionally well in the field. With that, nobody panic. I'm going to give you all the different options, and if you got other questions, just throw them in the comments, like I said, or put them in my Discord. But first and foremost, we are going to go with your infantry marches, okay? Let me bring this up here for infantry, and I'm going to go through this pretty fast, okay? So not a whole lot of back and forth looking at skills. If you want to do that, you can do that obviously on your own. The best march you're going to have for infantry, straight up BQ Luce. I mean, it's pretty simple. BQ Luce, best march for infantry, one of the best marches in the game. Listen, you got 3 amazing marches in the game. You got Chen, either with Zuge or YSG. You've got Arthur and Achilles, and you got BQ Luce. So no argument here. That's your best march, okay? I am seeing more and more players go with a 2 smite setup. And if you do this, the best way to run your 2 smites, in my opinion, if you have unlimited, basically you have all the commanders, is to run BQ with Wallace and Luce with Hector. Again, you can reference my Hector guide. The report, I got the receipts, guys. The reports I got with Luce and Hector and BQ and Hector were fantastic. Hector, and dare I say this, Hector is a better smite commander than William Wallace. He just is. And so from that standpoint, that's your best 2 smite combination if you want to run 2 infantry smite marches. If you don't have Hector, then your BQ Phillip and Luce with Alex is really, really good. Of course, you could also run BQ Wallace with Luce and Alex. That's another way to run your 2 smite marches, but that kind of gives you the idea. BQ Wallace, Luce and Hector, or BQ Wallace, Luce and Alex, or BQ Wallace, or BQ Philip and Luce and Alex, or you could run BQ CJ or Luce and CJ. You can run a bunch of different ways. These 2 right here are the best way I like to run it. If you don't have Hector, I like to run it like this, or I like to run it like this with BQ Wallace and Luce and Alex. So you can do it a couple of different ways, okay? Now, if you're going to run 2 marches with a smite and a skill, it's really pretty simple. It's BQ Luce and then Ragnar Philip. I do not like to run Ragnar without Philip. Okay, Ragnar is getting old, all right? He's been in the game for over a year now, and he was great, but they're going away from skill damage for infantry. I think the next round of infantry MGEs that we're going to get, or the next generation of infantry, is going to stick to smite, and so skill damage is falling off. Plus, Ragnar doesn't have any instant procs, and if you run Ragnar with CPO, it doesn't have any instant procs except for CPO's additional damage that he does. However, you got to be hooked up to the target to do that. But overall, Ragnar Philip just does so much better for me and anybody I've talked to. If you run a smite and a skill, that's the way you want to run it. If you have to use Philip somewhere else, you run Ragnar with CPO. You can still do it. It's not going to trade great, but that's the way it is, okay? On to the 3 march setup, okay? If you're running 3 infantry marches, I love it just like this. Running the Philip with Ragnar, and then running the Luce with Hector, okay? Now, if you need to use your Philip somewhere else, or if you want to run Luce with Alex, you can definitely run Ragnar with CPO, okay? If you don't have Hector, there's a way you can do that, obviously, by running Luce with Alex, Ragnar with Philip, or Ragnar CPO, and then BQ and Wallace. Really easy way to do that. A lot of different combinations to do that if you're running a skill damage march with 2 smite marches. So this is the way, if I had everything at my disposal, that's the way I would run that, okay? And so, again, no Hector, just go run Alex, okay? And you're good to go. And so from there, that's your 3 march with 2 smite and 1 skill damage. Now the 3 march smite setup, okay? This is where it gets a little bit interesting, because what I like to do is I like to kind of move some things around a little bit, and you can do it a couple of different ways. You can either run BQ with Hector, or you could run BQ with Wallace, all right? But I like to run BQ with Hector and then Luce with Philip, okay? Because I like Luce being with Philip. If I had my druthers, if I could just pick it the way I wanted to, that's the way I would like to run my Luce with Philip to fire off the instant procs more. And then run William Wallace with CJ, okay? In addition to that, if you don't have Hector, you can run BQ with Philip, Luce with Alex, and then run your William Wallace with CJ. You can run these 3 setups. And then if you don't want to run Alex, if you got a lot of pincer formation stuff on your Luce and you want to get max value, just put Luce CJ in there. So you can run that a bunch of different ways. But if you had everything at your disposal, these are the 3 I would run. If you don't have Hector, I would run it with this, and then Wallace with CJ. That's how I would run those 3. And so that's your infantry setup when it comes to your marches. All right. So from there, let's get on to cavalry. Okay, now we got our cavalry set up, okay? We're going to talk about this because a lot has changed, obviously, with the combo commanders that are in the game. We've got Gang now. He's doing really well. Obviously, Achilles, one of the most powerful commanders in the game, and really changed things for cavalry. The best march straight up, easy is your Arthur with Achilles. In my opinion, it's the second best march in the game behind Chin. It is doing wonders for everybody. I told you Achilles was going to be meta. He's meta. He is crushing things in the field. He's a field monster. He just is. And I got chatted down from a lot of people saying I'm not allowed to get all excited about Achilles. Sorry, I read the skills and I read the expertise and I tested the expertise, and that's why he is crushing it. He's great in Canyon with an Arthur Achilles march if you're running 1 cav, and if you're just bringing 1 cav to the field, that's what you want to bring. Straight up, no questions asked, okay? Your 2 combo setup, all right? If I had all of my picks, I would run Hector behind Arthur. Remember, Hector has got an instant proc with his skills, and Arthur fires off those instant procs more and more. I would also run Achilles with Gang Gang, okay? Achilles with Gang Gang, extremely potent. Now, understand this, Cav players. You can run Gang Gang first, all right? And this is the only time I'll pull this thing down. You can run Gang Gang first. And the reason why is because Gang Gang does this crazy healing, all right? And when he does the healing, after his active skill, he's going to do the healing based off the combo damage you do. So if you have him primary and you have Achilles secondary, you're going to heal a ton more. Okay, you're going to get a lot more healing because Achilles is doing a lot more combo damage factor as a secondary. However, this fourth skill is very important. And I'm on my second account here, where on my main, I've got him expertise. But with his fourth skill, you're laying down a defense reduction debuff. Okay, if Gang Gang is primary, that's only going to trigger on one target. All right, so I like to run Achilles primary because you're doing AoE damage to 5 targets. And if you look at it, you're going to be able to put that defense reduction debuff on 3 of the 5 targets. You have a better chance to do that. So you're going to have more uptime as far as the marches that you lay that debuff down with Achilles. Plus, overall, guys, this is just my style. I like running the high damage AoEs primary. I just always do. Because of back and forth fighting, you're trying to do as much damage as possible. And if you get lucky enough to get an active skill to fire off, you want to do all your damage. And so many times I've seen it where you're going back and forth fighting, you're chasing, you get your primary active skill commander to fire off, and then you got to run away. And you can't even get your secondary commander to fire off. So I always like running that with the high damage, high AoE to be primary. Okay, so that's that. I just needed to go through that, and so everybody understood exactly how that worked. Okay, so from there, if you don't have Arthur, that's fine. You can run Arthur, or I'm sorry, if you don't have Hector, you can run Arthur with Philip. That's fine if you don't have Hector. You run Arthur with Philip, and there you go. There's your best 2 combo Cav marches. Now, for me specifically, I dropped the skill damage marches because when I ran 2 combo on my second account, I didn't want to bring Huo to the field anymore. I don't have Belly. That seems to be the only way Huo's even surviving right now is with Belly. I even ran him with Arthur behind him. Didn't work out as well. But Belly provides a lot more of that single target damage, and Belly also provides the big buff from his debuff on his expertise to give the target 12% more all damage taken from all sources. So that's why I went 2 combo, just does better. Just absolutely does better. And if you want to get crazy and you don't have Gang Gang or Hector, you can run Attila with Achilles. I ran this with Delta formation on Attila. Did exceptionally well, okay? And my Delta formation stuff is nothing crazy. It was like my second Delta formation. I put it on Attila with Achilles, and it really did pretty well. And so you can run that as an option as well if you're going with 2 combo marches and you don't have Hector or you don't have Gang Gang, you can run it just like that. Okay, and so there's your 2 combo setup. Now, in a 2-march situation with combo and skill, it's pretty simple. You run Achilles with Gang Gang and then Huo with Arthur. You could try to get that to run as best you can. Okay, me personally, if I had to do it, I would run Arthur Achilles and then I would run Huo Belly. That's how I would run that. All right. And if you don't have Gang Gang, this is the best way to run the combo and skill damage setup. Okay. You don't want it. You can run Huo Joan, but it's just going to get cooked, y'all. I ran it. So many players out there. You guys know what I'm talking about. You're getting cooked with Huo Joan now. And so if I don't have Gang Gang, I would run it with Arthur and Achilles and Huo Belly. If I did have Gang Gang, I would run Achilles with Gang Gang and then Huo with Arthur. See if Arthur can try to carry Huo. It's just hard, man. Huo's days are so numbered right now. I mean, it is so hard, okay? So if you're going to go with 3 marches, they're going to have 2 combo and 1 skill damage. Do not run 2 skill damage cavalry marches. First and foremost, we're not talking about that. We are not running 2 skill damage cavalry marches. Just not going to work, okay? But if I had my pick, I would run Arthur with Hector, fantastic, Achilles with Gang Gang, and then the Huo Belly. That's how I would run that. All right. If you don't have Hector, easily run Arthur with Philip. That's always really, really good. Okay. And if you don't have Belly, you could run that Huo Joan again. I don't advise it. It's really, really difficult to run that. And so that's your 3-march setup. Now, this is where it gets interesting. 3 combo setup looks a little bit like this, okay? I like Arthur with Philip, Achilles with Gang Gang, and then Attila with Hector. Yeah, you can run Attila with Hector, okay? If, and you guys know that have been playing the game a while, that have maybe been running Attila with Philip, you know that you can run Attila with Philip and then just move Hector over here with Arthur, okay? So you go Arthur Hector, you go Achilles with Gang Gang, and then you can run Attila Philip, all right? So you can do it that way too. However, if you're really wanting to go combo, look at this. Attila with David. All right, David is got one of the best AoE high damage skills in the game. He's a garrison commander, but he's also got, and I'll pull this down so you can see, David has also got a crazy, and I mean crazy debuff when you're running a bunch of combo. All right, first of all, first skill works great, and you have the cleanse effect. He does 2,800 damage factor to 3 targets. All right, great for the field. You also have some good second skill setup when it comes to him in the field. It's taking less skill damage and having a ton more defense. All right, third skill doesn't work, but here is where the money is. Okay, when he lays down an active skill, now it can be from the primary like Attila, and you're attacking a troop on the map, which is a march, right? The target takes 40% more combo damage. Well, if you're running 3 combo, this can work, and that's why I have this up here. We're gonna do more testing with David in the field, but that's how we're gonna do it, okay? So take a picture of that. There's your cavalry marches as far as the specific troop type. Best march, 2 combo, combo and a skill, 3 march with 2 combo and a skill, and then 3 march with just 3 combo. That's what you've got, okay? So now let's move on to our archer marches and see what we can do there. All right, okay, now that we're getting into the archer marches, same kind of setup, but we don't have anything mix or match because everything's skill damage, right? So we're just gonna go best march, 2 march, 3 march, and that's how we are gonna run it, okay? And so from there, I've got 2 different variations of 3 march, and you can kind of see how we do that based on how you're set up. But first and foremost, best march, Chin YSG or Chin Zuge, however you want to run it. Okay, we can debate all day long. I like the damage of YSG. Zuge provides more utility with the damage debuff he does on the 5 targets he hits. And so you can run it however you want. That's not what this video is about. We're not going to argue that, okay? If you're going 2 marches, pretty simple. Chin and YSG, and Zuge with Herman. That's the best 2-march setup you can do for archers. If you like Philip, if you don't like the fact that your Zuge and Herman just keeps getting wrecked, you can put Philip behind Zuge. A lot of people like this. A lot of people would argue that Zuge Philip is actually a better 2-march setup, and that's honestly what I ran. So, but most players want to use Philip somewhere else, so we'll just put this Zuge with Philip somewhere else, okay? Your 3-march setup, pretty simple. Now we bring in the Zuge Philip because we're going to bring Ash into the field. He does AoE, a lot of damage. He's a rally commander, however, still good in the field to use, and you can put Herman behind Ash, okay? So that's kind of your 3-march setup. And if you have Shajar, you better not, unless you're a Canyon junkie. You know, nobody should have Shajar because not great in the field. However, if you've got her and you're running 3 archers, I would run it just like this with Zuge and Philip. And then I would run maybe Ash or a Herman with YSG, or you could run, if you want to leave YSG at home, you could run your Ash with Herman. That's your archer setup, okay? And so from there, pretty simple, pretty easy, all right? So now we're gonna get into the 5-march setup. So stick with me, as this is gonna be a little bit interesting, but we'll get to it. Okay, now that we've kind of adjusted, we've got our 5-march setup here going on. understand this. There's no right answer here, guys. There's my opinion on this. I have run this stuff. I've racked up the K. I got collectively between my two accounts, I've got 80 billion kill points. Okay, so I've been fighting in this game for years, and so my opinion, and 50 cents can get you a cup of coffee. That's what it can get you, okay? So it doesn't necessarily mean much, but this is how I would set it up. If I had to completely choose my best 5, here is what I would run. I would run Arthur with Philip, and I'll give you other options, guys, because I'm going to have Hector in this and evolve Hector, but I'll give you some other options. I'm going to run Arthur, Philip, and let me come down here and just make sure I've got my no crops on here. Arthur, Philip, I would run Achilles with Gang Gang, okay? Then I would run BQ Wallace, and then I would run Luce with Hector, oh boy, and then run the Chin March. I would go 2-2-1 setup. That's how I would do it, okay? And the only thing I would change if you didn't have Hector on that, I would run Luce with Alex. That's how I would run that. Okay, and so you can kind of mix and match and do different things, and that's what we'll talk about here in a few. But if I had my druthers, if I had my unlimited opinion on being able to use whatever I wanted, that's exactly how I would run it right there. Okay, and so I'll put Luce Alex up here as a replacement for Hector. I'll always have a Hector replacement because not a lot of people are going to have him, and I don't suggest people to just go max him to max him. He's not an instant max commander. Okay, now we'll get on to our 3 Cavs. Arthur and Philip, love it. Achilles with Gang Gang, love it. If you're gonna go with a skill damage commander, you can go with Huo and Belly. That's a 3 Cav setup with 1 infantry. It's pretty simple, BQ and Luce, and 1 archer, which is Chin with whichever one you want. And then from there, you could do it a couple of different ways, but if you do have Hector, I love Achilles with Hector. I love it. Okay, you could run Achilles with Hector, and then you could get rid of the Huo with Belly if you just don't want to go with any skill damage. You also got Huo with Joan, eesh. And then, just like we talked about, if you do have David, you could run Attila with David. All right, and so from there, you got to understand, you remember that David 4 skill on the combo? Well, you're running a whole bunch of combo commanders when you have a 3 Cav lineup, and you could run that as well. But if you have to run Joan, I get it, that's fine. It's only going to be a matter of time, because you're going to see that the Huo Joan, even the Huo Belly, is not quite doing it, okay? A lot of people could put Arthur with William. I understand that sentiment. You got guys like Amphala that think William is just the greatest guy ever, and so I respect that. I understand it. I've used William. I like William. I just like Philip so much better. And if I'm just running 1 infantry march, I can run BQ Luce, 1 archer march, I could run Chin, and I'm good, okay? So that's kind of your 5 march setup with 3 cavalry. Now, let's go to 3 infantry. It makes it easy on cavalry. Arthur and Achilles, got to run that. And when you run that, you're cooking and you're fine. Now to the infantry, BQ with Wallace, let's go. Luce with Hector, let's freaking go. And then not running Ragnar without Philip, not in this setup, they ain't no way. And then from there, you've got Chin with YSG or Zuge, okay? If you maybe do not have our boy Hector, you can easily go with a Luce Alex. You know, just put Luce and Alex right in there, and that's your 3 infantry lineup. All right, and so that's pretty simple, pretty easy, but it is really cool to basically run 3 infantry with a 5 march setup, okay? And then so from there, if you're going to go with 2 archers, all right, I'm going to run 2 cavalry with that. I'm going to run Arthur with Hector. I'm going to run Achilles with Gang Gang. And then we just got 1 infantry march. That's how I would run 2 archers with BQ and Luce. And then I'd run Chin with YSG. And then I would either run Zuge with Philip or Zuge with Herman, whichever way you want to run that. And if you do have Hector and you want to run 2 infantry, or if you want to put Arthur with Philip and you're running 2 cavalry or two archers in this situation, you can do it like that and then easily run Zuge with Hector. Hector is a skill damage commander with archers. He does really well. He enhances skill damage, does really well. So a bunch of different ways you could run that, but if I had my pick, I would run it either like this, take a picture, Or I would run it like this. Pretty simple. Pull that down. Pretty simple. So there's your archer or your 5-march setup, and that's what it looks like. If you have different combinations, you can go back to the troop types and look at what I would run with the different types of troops, with 3 infantry, 3 archers sometimes, however you want to run that. So with that, let's go on to the 6-march setup, shall we? All right, now we're on to 6 marches. Let's go. Okay, so I'm going to run what I think is the best 6 marches, then the best 6 march with 3 cavalry, the best 6 march with 3 infantry, then the best 6 march with 3 archers. That's how I'm going to do this, okay? And so when we come in here to the best 6 marches, this is and exactly how I'm going to run. I'm going to run a 2-2-2 setup, and I'm going to run Luce with Hector. That's where I'm going to pull my Hector. I'm going to run the 2 archer marches. And this is really pretty simple. This is about as potent as you can get when it comes to 6 marches. All right. Now you can do it a couple of different ways. If you have Luce Alex and you don't have Hector, you could run Luce Alex. And then if you do have Hector and you love Luce Alex, you can just move your Hector over here with Arthur and run Arthur Hector, Achilles Gang, BQ and Wallace, Luce and Alex, and then your 2 archer marches. So that's how you can do that. Really pretty simple. I think that's the best 6 ways. The best way you go with 6 marches. Pretty simple, pretty standard 2-2-2 setup, and go to town, okay? If you are more of a cav main like me and you want to run 3 cavalry with 6 marches, all right? We're going to stick to that same model. Arthur with Philip, Achilles with Gang. I'm going to pull in Huo with Belly. Probably going to be my worst march out of that. Then I run BQ with Wallace. I run Luce with Hector. And then I run the archers, okay? In addition to that, I can also have Luce and Alex if I don't have Hector, okay? On top of that, for you cav guys that are running a lot of combo and you don't want to run skill damage, you could run Attila with Hector and Attila with David. Or you could run Attila with Philip. There's all kinds of different ways you can do that. But this one, Huo, BQ, Luce, and Chen, those are my 6 marches when I run 3 calves. I'm going to have two combo calves with 1 skill damage. I'm going to have 2 smite, and I'm going to have a skill damage archer, and I'm ready to go. That's how I'm going to do it. Now, if I wanted to do 3 infantry, and this is like it is for my second account, this is exactly how I ran it and would love to run it. And so Arthur with Hector, oh, love it. Achilles with Gang, love it. And then I can run my 3 infantry marches. And then I make sure Ragnar is pulled with Philip. Do not want to run Ragnar if I don't have Philip. Okay, pretty simple there. Run my archer march with it. Great. And then if I don't have Hector in this situation, I'm running Arthur with William. Just put him there and run those 6 marches. But if I do have Hector, I would rather run it like that, okay? That is your 3 infantry march. Now, you could do some things with Hector like we did up here and put him behind Luce and then run Arthur William, BQ with Wallace, then Luce Hector, then Ragnar Philip. You could do it that way too, but that just gives you an idea of how you run 6 marches with 3 infantry, okay? Now on to archers. This is kind of a psychotic setup. You 3 archer march players out there, you guys are nuts, okay? I would actually run just 1 cavalry march with this because you can't run Philip. All right, I would run Arthur with Achilles, then I'd run the BQ with Wallace, then I would run Luce and Hector. Now remember, you can use Luce and Alex if you don't have Hector. Then here we go. We run Chen with YSG, you run Zuge with Philip, and then you bring in Ash. That's the best way I can think of to run that. I'm going to go ahead and put Luce Alex over here. This is kind of your sub-march over here. Sub-march with these 2, and sub-march here. So there's a way you can do that however you want. But Chen YSG, Philip Zuge, you're not going to get much argument out of that. And then Ash with Herman. Of course, we talked about if you have Shajar, you could run Chen Shajar, you could run Zuge with Philip, and then you could run Herman YSG if you would rather not run Ash. And so bunch of different ways you can do that. And that is your 6 March lineups, okay? Now, we'll get on to the coveted 7 March lineups, and we'll have a little fun with that. So let's take a look at that. All right. Hey, yo, 7 marches. Here we go. You psychos out there that are running 7 marches and running up the Crystal Tech, here we go. This is how we're going to do this thing, okay? First of all, I've got unlimited, so I'm taking Hector. I'm going to put Hector behind Arthur. Love it. Achilles with Gang Gang. Love it. Don't love Huo with Belly. However, probably going to trade the worst out of all 7 marches, but you're going to get the Belly debuff, and it's going to be the best Huo you could probably do if you're putting Arthur over here. All right? Love BQ Wallace, and I love Luce Alex. That's what you got to run. Okay? From there, my 2 Archer marches are going to look something like that. We got Philip on the field, Zuge and Philip. Great march, arguably the second best Archer march. I love running Philip. That's how I would do it. Now I could put Philip in other places. All right. If I don't have Hector, I could easily run Arthur with Philip and then bring in Herman and run Herman behind Zuge. You can do it that way too. All right. If you want to run Zuge with Philip and you don't have Hector, you could also run this guy, Arthur with William. Okay, still really good. You can still run it that way. And if you want to get rid of your Huo Belly and you want to run Hector behind Arthur, or you want to run Arthur with William and Zuge with Herman, you can bring in your Attila with Philip. That's how you can do that. Okay, so a couple different ways you can do that. That's what I would recommend, and that's what I would put in. Okay, from there, all right. If you're running, so this is a 7 march setup you're looking at. This is 3 cavalry, 2 infantry, 2 archers. Now, if you want to go 3 infantry, all right? If you want to go 3 infantry, there's a couple different ways you can do that, but let's think about this, all right? We're going to first and foremost, going to pull Philip over, all right? We're going to run 3 infantry with 2 cav combo marches, all right? So we got Arthur with William, Achilles with Gang Gang. Then we're going to run BQ with Wallace, Luce with Hector. That's where we're going to put our Hector. And then Ragnar with Philip. All right, if we're running Ragnar, we're going to bite the bullet. We're going to put Philip behind him, make it as good as possible, the best we can. And then from there, we're going to run Chen with YSG. And then we're going to run Zuge with Herman. If you do not have Hector in this lineup, really simple, you just run Luce with Alex. So that is your best 3 infantry lineup, okay? And now some infantry players say, Chatsky, I run 3 smite, then refer back to the infantry smite setup for 3 marches, and you can figure it out from there. But this is how I would do it, all right? Arthur William, Achilles Gang Gang, BQ Wallace, and Luce Hector. Ragnar with Philip, and then your 2 Archer marches, and go rock and roll. Here's your sub if you don't have Hector. All right. Now we're going to run it with 3 archers. Okay. 3 archers, pretty simple for me. If I had my druthers, I would run Arthur with Hector. I would run Achilles with Gang Gang. Then I would run BQ Wallace, Luce with Alex, and then now my 3 Archer marches. This is exactly how I would run it. Fits in line with exactly how I had the situation with my my Archer marches on that section of the video, okay? In addition to this, if you don't have Arthur with Hector and you're putting Philip over here with Zuge, you just run Arthur with William. Pretty simple, okay? Now, that lines it out for your best 7 marches. However, we got a little extra credit here. We're going to call this the Psycho Normal Damage lineup, okay? So if you're going all in on combo and smite, all in, I'm talking 3 combo marches, 3 smite marches, and an Archer march. All right, this can be pretty potent. And you also have the Mayan civilization. Let me show this to you real quick. I'll pull this down. This is why this might work, and I might just run it, okay? If you come over here to the civilizations, of course, you can pick whatever special unit you want, but you get 3% normal damage, okay? 3% normal damage when it comes to the Mayan civilization, all right? Don't really care about the Archer defense because you're only running 1 Archer march, but this is like 3% all damage. If I told you right now, no matter what you're running, you had a civilization that had a buff of 3% all damage, would you take it? Hell yeah, you would take it. We would all take it. All right, so from that situation, we're gonna do it. We're gonna put together our Psycho Normal Damage setup, all right? And so from that standpoint, let's go. Arthur, Hector. Got to have Hector in this situation, so we're running that. Achilles gang. Let's go. I choose Attila with David because David is laying down that debuff while all these combo commanders are crushing the target. All right, the 40% combo damage taken for 3 seconds, David's providing that. Also, David does a ton of combo himself. From there, I'm putting Philip behind BQ, I'm putting Alex behind Luce, and I'm running Wallace with CJ, okay? Now, here's the kicker. So now I've got 3 combo marches. I got 3 smite marches, even though Philip doesn't do smite, and Alex doesn't do smite. You still have BQ and Luce, and then you've got Wallace and CJ. Here's the kicker. Chin with Shajar. That's how you run that. And the reason why is because Shajar has the 20% normal damage bonus to three of your marches that she's healing. And that's every skill cycle. And you get that 20% normal damage bonus. That's what makes Shajar enhancing your combo and smite. And if you want to get really psycho on this deal, check this out. You can run Attila Takeda, okay? If you run Attila Takeda, Takeda has the burn effect. And a little refresh for everybody, the burn effect makes it to where the target takes 50% more normal damage. The burn effect is amazing, okay, from Takeda. If you do this, you can move David behind Arthur, and then you can move Hector behind BQ. All right, and then you can do whatever you want with Philip. You can put him behind Luce if you want to, but you can move that stuff around a little bit, okay? But that just gives you a glimpse into how you would run a psycho normal damage lineup and use the Mayan civilization for the 3% all damage. Okay, and apologies to my boy R-Blade and some of you imp simps or cav simps or archer simps. I'm not gonna do a 7 March psycho cav lineup, and I'm not gonna do the same thing with an infantry psycho lineup. Okay, so this is what you've got. Okay, so now you can refer back to the video and all the different things. Also, I'm going to have a card at the end screen that talks about Hector because I've used Hector for a lot of this stuff. And as I've used Hector for a lot of this stuff, you guys are sitting there thinking, I didn't know he was good in the field. Well, that video will explain it all because I got the receipts and it's amazing. And so from there, if you all enjoyed this video, please throw a thumbs up on here. Give it a like. It takes a lot of time and effort to put all that stuff into play, but now you've got it. December 2025. We have got our Ultimate March Guide, our Ultimate Murderball Guide, and let's go to town. So, with that being said, we love you, broskies, and we hope you have a great day.